make sure that you keep yourself on mute. The chat box will be available throughout the event to post your questions. So please do post your questions in the chat and we will answer them during the Q&A sessions. Please make sure you switch your computer to speaker view so you can see who's speaking at any time. And please be aware that this meeting is being recorded. This meeting is not being streamed on Facebook Live, but the recording will be posted on r241.com and the 241 Facebook page after the event. So without further delay, I'm going to introduce Ms. Charlene Hughes. She serves as the co-chair for the 241 Public Policy and Advocacy Council. She's also the Director of Community Engagement at the St. Louis Diaper Bank, a founder of Humanity in the Middle, which is an organization dedicated to prosperity of young adults. And Ms. Charlene is also a resident of the 241. Over to you, Charlene.
Well, good evening, everybody. And as Rachel said, we thank you very much for joining this town hall meeting this evening. We have some great speakers coming up. Tonight's topics will go over, an overview of bonds in historical context, current bond initiatives, and we'll also look at things from a local perspectives. So tonight's speakers will be Mr. Abdul Kaba Abdullah of Park Central Development, Ms. Sheila Williams, Normandy Schools Collaborative School Board, Chris Craymeyer, President and CEO of Beyond Housing, Mayor Brian Jackson, the City of Beverly Hills, Mayor James McGee, the City of Veneta Park, and Mr. Elwin Walls, Community Advocate, 241 resident, and PPAC member. Mr. Abdul, if you're ready, you can take it away.
All right, good evening, everyone. How's everyone doing? I'm going to do what's called Bond 101, and I'm going to share my screen here. I know everyone is probably zoomed out, but I'm going to certainly share my screen because I want to talk about what we call Bond really 101. So my presentation we'll just kind of jump into it. And what is a bond? So most of the time when we have presentations like this, it's really complicated. And to be honest, I've done a couple bond deals before, but the first time I heard what a bond was, I was like, what are they talking about? You know, and it was more so one of those things when when you're talking in just what I like to call lay people terms, you know, what does that actually mean? Here we have my good friend Poindexter, you know, and on the slide it says Poindexter is the professor genius nephew with an IQ of 777, and most of the time, you know, although he speaks well, he has the jargon, you don't know what he's talking about, and quite frankly, I don't know what he's talking about, and I do some of this for a living. So we want to start though with Poindexter's definition of a bond, because I want to just give a little foundational information, which is going to set the framework, I think, for the rest of the presentation, and just making sure that there's some understanding. So what is a bond? This is Poindexter's definition. A bond is a fixed income instrument that represents a loan made by an investor to a borrower, typically corporate or governmental. A bond can be thought of as an IOU between the lender and the borrower that includes the details of loans and its payments. Bonds are used by companies, municipalities, states, and sovereign governments to finance projects and operations. Owners of bonds are debt holders or creditors of the issuer. Bond details include the end date when the principal of the loan is due to be paid to the bond owner, and usually includes the term for variable or fixed interest payments made by the borrower. So that's typically what we hear here. And to be honest, the first time I heard it, I was a city manager, and I said to myself, man, what is this? You know, I mean, I get it, but what is it? So I want to give another definition, and this is what I like to call Abdul, my man Theaster Gates. He's out of Chicago, and another practitioner in the field named Brian, and AKA normal people. This is normal people when we're talking about it every day. This is our definition of a bond. And when I talk about the bond, this is how it was explained to me. How normal people talk bonds, right? A bond is a loan that is taken out. And that's really what a bond is. It's just a basic loan that is taken out by the city, school district, or anybody that can tax you. So most of the time, if you ever seen your tax bill, if you go to do your tax bill, the city get a little bit, the school district get a little bit, it may have another person get a little bit, And most of the time, those are taxing, what they call taxing authorities who can tax. So, that's what those are the people who can tax you. So when you do that, those are the people who can get tax money from you. So most of the time, it's those people that take out bonds, and what they use them for basic projects. So if you want to get a new swimming pool, or the school need air conditioner, or the city needs new roads, you want to be able to be in a position to be able to pay for that. Most of the time, people don't have that money up front. So what do? You take out a bond or a loan. And the way that loan works is they use the future taxes that you will pay, or the ones you're currently paying, to secure the loan. So that's the collateral. And then they pay that loan back with interest by a specific date in the future. So basically, to make that even more plainer, basically we know it's two people that you can't accept. That's the good man upstairs. Everyone will see him at some point. There's two things that are certain, that you will do that, but you will also pay taxes. So we know taxes are a certain thing. So that's something that you can be certain about. So because the city can get taxes, and they're going to get them every year, that's typically why they'll do a bond, because it's almost like guaranteed money. So want to kind of go through this again. Another aspect is the type of bond issues, right? So although you have bonds, you have different types of bond issues. Of course, we have Poindexter's definition of what the different types of bond issues are. One is a no tax increase bond issue. And just real quickly, I'll read that. It says, does not increase or decrease the district's debt service tax rate. It extends the amount of time taxpayers are subject to the district's current debt service tax rate. So again, good friend Abdul, Theoscar, and Brian, we just gonna make it really plain. Basically, a no tax increase bond issue says this. It's you deciding that although you paid that previous that previous loan that you paid off has already done, that basically I'm going to keep paying that tax that I've been paying traditionally. So a tax, you may have a tax that you may, a bond issue or a tax you may pay for 20 years. Well, most of the time when that expires, you will reauthorize that, and they call that a no tax increase bond issue. Although you're still paying the tax, you're basically reauthorizing that resource of that service that you've been receiving. Or you may not want that service. You may want to say, well, hey, we want to use this to do something different, or to do initial piece, but it won't raise taxes because we already paying it. We just reallocating that money in another way. Then you have the tax increase bond issue, and that increases the district's debt service and tax rate. That's what Poindexter says. In layman terms, basically, it keeps the existing taxes that you're already paying once that once that bond expires, and then it also raises your tax rates. That you're also going to raise the taxes, or the amount of taxes you're going to pay to fund a project or resources for students or residents that they may have. So that's really my bond 101. I'm going to stop sharing my screen there, and I just really tried to make it as simple as possible, because I didn't understand, and I understood it in concept, but most of the time, we want to make this very clear, because the whole point of this is to give you information that empowers you. So I will stop there, and at this point, I'm going to pass it back over to Ms. Charlotte.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Abdul. I mean, I have to admit that I learned something new. I think sometimes we take for granted that the information that people are putting out is complete, and this Bonds 101 let me know that it is not. So I thank you for sharing your knowledge.
Yeah, what I found, Ms. Charlotte, and I'll just be my last statement, is that most of the time it isn't what you're saying, it's what people are hearing.
Mhm.
We got to make this thing plain, common everyday folk, to be able to understand it and not make it convoluted. So that was my goal, and I'll be here to answer any other questions.
All right. Well, you definitely accomplished that. So part 2 on tonight's agenda is historical context, past education bonds and initiatives in the Normandy School Collaborative. And Ms. Sheila Williams, will you take over for us, please?
Yes, thank you, Charlene. I have a few notes here. Let's see. No, I'm only going to do a little bit. When I joined the district in 2004, Lucas Crossing was already occupied. You had approved a bond issue that allowed the district to close 3 schools and place the children in this brand new facility. As you drive through the district, you will see other visible signs of your support for Normandy's children that were the result of the bond issues passed between 2003 and 2014. There's Obama Elementary in Pine Lawn that replaced Garfield and Pine Lawn Elementary. No one argued with closing the Pine Line building, but in response to the community's voice, Beyond Housing kept Garfield's facade intact. Then at the high school, that fabulous college-looking campus, there's a new entry, fence, windows, a marquee, and doors. You know, I have to look at old pictures to realize what that fence once looked like. Then there are changes that you can't see as you pass by, like science labs, a gym, weight room for our athletes, new curtains and lighting for the little theater, and a dance floor for Dwayne Foster, who has appeared on Broadway. So Dwayne can give our students some of those Broadway moves. If the children were needed, when the children needed, greater access to computers and the internet, you approved a bond issue to ensure that all students, kindergarten through grade 12, had access to computers every day. Also in that bond issue were the secured entries for the elementary school buildings to ensure the safety of the students. In 2014, the district went through a series of traumatic events: the classification of unaccredited, the state oversight change from Normandy School District to the Normandy Schools Collaborative, the costly transfer program, and the murder of our student, Michael Brown. For lesser communities, those events would have meant total collapse. But instead, this community embraced its children, remained Normandy strong, and regained provisional accreditation in less time than any other school district that had experienced the state intervention. Having regained accreditation, the district's leadership asked the voters once again to support a bond issue. This time it would raise funds for additions to Washington and Jefferson, build a new facility for our preschoolers, and make modifications to the elementary schools. Those modifications would prepare for the Ella-Middle model, an intervention unlike any other in the state of Missouri. I want you guys, all of the voters, drive through here, see what you've paid for. Thank you.
Thank
Charlene?
you very much, Ms. Sheila, for that historical context. And I see that we have had some bonds that have done some great things in our area. So at this time, we want to open up the floor for any questions that you may have for Ms. Sheila or Mr. Abdullah.
Please feel free to post your questions in the chat at this time. Anything related to Bonds 101 or post previous Normandy Schools Collaborative bond issues. We'll just give it one moment and then we will move on. Thank you. At this time, I don't see anything in the chat, Ms. Charlene. And there will be another session for question and answer at the end of this town hall. So at any time, please feel free to post your questions in the chat.
All right. Well, as Rachel said, there aren't Any questions? And so we'll go ahead and move on. At this point, I want to go ahead and turn things over to Mr. Chris Krameyer, CEO and President of Beyond Housing, so he can talk about Proposition T and Proposition V. Chris, go ahead, take the mic.
Thank you, Sean. And actually, I'm just going to queue up some folks from the Normandy Schools Collaborative to talk about the propositions. Superintendent Robinson was confirmed to join us this evening, but regrettably, he took ill today and wasn't able to join us. But on the call tonight, we have two of his senior leaders, Mr. Phil Pusateri and Ms. Regina Marsh, who are here and able to talk about Proposition T and Proposition V. So Phil and Regina, we've allocated about 5 to 6 minutes for this period. So if you guys want to give us an overview of the two propositions, that would be great.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Sure can, Phil. Thank you.
My name is Phil Pusateri. I'm Associate Superintendent and Chief Financial Officer. I started as CFO in 2018 in the district. Thanks for the opportunity to have us come and speak tonight. I just wanted to share some of our thinking behind the Prop V and Prop T that are before voters. I want to set the context, as Ms. Williams mentioned, that having been unaccredited as a district, we had watched $41 million go out our doors to pay outside districts as part of the transfer program. And my belief is that $41 million that we were paying to Clayton, Ladue, and other districts led to a good amount of deferred maintenance. If you have been on a tour around the high school, you could see that what our students experience on a day-to-day basis is much different than what they experience when our student athletes at Normandy High School go and visit Hazelwood, Ladue, Brentwood, whoever they play in the sports. And they say, why is our building like this and not like theirs? A number of mayors and public officials were at the recent event where the students came and gave their testimonials. But we feel like at its core that if the voters do approve this, that this will help bring our students closer to their peers in having a quality environment to learn. There's also a lot of research that links quality environments to student performance. So we believe that if the air quality is great, if there isn't visible rust or other interior defects, that students are going to be more focused on learning and that their performance is going to go up. So we believe that's one of the core values behind Prop B and Prop T. I don't know if you know this, but there were a number of handguns recovered on campus during the last shortened school year. So we let out school in March, and from August to approximately mid-March, there were 4 handguns recovered at the Normandy High School campus. The sense of safety among our teachers and students, frankly, as you can imagine, wasn't great. One central issue of Prop V and Prop T is to build a new secure connector. We have that beautiful campus that's kind of like a college, but this secure connector will allow for a single entry point, and the inner quad, you basically have to kind of go through a welcome center to get there. We feel like enhancing the sense of safety is certainly needed when in a shortened school year we had 4 handguns on campus. And again, it's up to the voters, and you know, our message is please just get out and vote. But we do believe that if it passes, it'll lead to these positive events. Another part of it has to do with the idea of a community auditorium. A number of public officials here, they know that when the pandemic isn't happening, that we make our buildings available to the community. We often waive fees for community members as they seek to either have an event in the gym or an auditorium. And we believe that a community auditorium can be enjoyed by all 23 municipalities in our district. We invite you to come and visit. Mr. Robinson and Ms. Marsh are frequently giving tours to elected officials and others to see firsthand some of the areas needing improvement. Some people might have said, well, can't you do a lot of this through energy savings contracts? And frankly, we're already maxed out on our energy savings contracts to improve the lighting and ventilation in some spaces. And that's why we believe that we think it's going to be good for kids if voters decide to approve Prop V and Prop T. And we keep our promise like we kept our promise with Prop N, and we kept our promise with Prop T. So thanks for letting me speak on that. Ms. Marsh, I'm not sure if you wanted to add anything.
Sure, I just want to clarify Prop V and Prop T. Prop T is the no tax increase.
It will include the new connector, the secure connector that connects the buildings, as we had talked about before. Hold on a second, I apologize. A new secure connector that will link the buildings and the classrooms to ensure a safe campus for everyone. It also includes the classroom, cafeteria, and restrooms renovations. It includes a new indoor access to the current detached cafeteria, as well as cafeteria upgrades. It also includes the renovation of the library and a new STEM lab. So that is what's under Prop V with no tax increase. Prop T would provide funding for some of our other constructions, which would include the new community auditorium that Phil spoke about, the lobby renovation, the team locker rooms, and improvements to the spectator seating, replacement of at Viking Hall. It would also include the expansion of the West Gym at Normandy High School for the inclusion of the additional practice courts and new artificial turf, regulation size track, which Normandy High School does not have and we've been cited for, as well as some improvements to the parking area. So these things are definitely for Normandy High School and not our other schools. As Sheila Williams spoke on earlier, we have not done renovation to the high school in a period of time, and this is for just the high school. Thank you.
So Charlene, do you want to monitor a little Q&A? There were a few questions in the chat box. I don't know if we want to get to them now, or do we want to shift to our other speakers first?
Hey, Chris, I think it probably makes sense for us to open it up for the speakers that just left, that just spoke about the bonds.
Yes.
Okay.
I can introduce the first question here.
Thank you, Rachel.
So the first question we have in the chat is, the descriptions of what will be funded by the no tax increase and the tax increase bond sound the same. What is the difference? I know Ms. Regina Marsh explained some of this in her speech just now. If you would like further elaboration, can you please post in the chat a specific question? We have another question that says, the American Rescue Plan provides funds for some amendments to schools to provide better ventilation. How will that impact the need for bonds?
That's a great point. We're fortunate that the federal government has been seeking to help out schools as a result of the pandemic. We've identified out of the approximately 50+ million that we hope to get done, we've identified about 2.5 million that could be funded through federal funds related to air quality improvements. So we are going to take out everything that we can that's eligible to have it covered. In general, our plan is to take out that 2 million and have it covered through the federal funds, but there's still a great need beyond that ventilation help.
Phil, does that impact the bond issue itself and the debt taken if you use other funds?
No, we would just be spending, we would separate out some of the bond work. Frankly, the bond work, everything we want to do exceeds even the amount for Prop B and Prop T. We believe our students need 50 million plus. And if both pass, even if we take out that 2 million worth of ventilation improvements, we believe there's still a great need for all the other work to be done to have a regulation size track and upgraded Viking Hall and all those other things.
Thank you. So Ms. Regina, if you're speaking, you're on mute. I see you're muted.
Sorry, I do that all the time. So I think one of the questions was about what's the difference in the two bonds and how do they benefit the community? These propositions provide for critical maintenance issues, safety issues, and modern upgrades to ensure that our children have a transformational education experience. The difference between the two is the one Prop V. Prop V is a no tax increase bond, meaning it will not cost any taxpayers. And that includes the classrooms, the restrooms, the indoor
the connector to the buildings, as well as the renovation to the library and the STEM. Prop T, which has approximately a 58 cents increase to the operating tax levy. It is only for the construction of the new community and auditorium, the library renovation, the locker room improvements, the West Gym, the turf, and the regulation track, as well as some quad and parking improvements. So there is a difference in what we would use the different propositions for.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yes, ma'am.
So please continue to post your questions in the chat. At this point, I'm going to pass it back to Charlene so that we can keep the event moving with our last few panelists.
Thank you very much, Rachel. And thank you, Ms. Marsh, for explaining what was going on, or giving us, I should say, more details. So next, we'll have some local perspectives from our 24/1 municipal partnership. First, we have Mayor James McGee from the city of Anita Park. Mayor McGee, will you go ahead and take the mic?
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining our educational town hall. My name is Mayor McGee from the city of Anita Park. You know, in the poll, the 24/1 municipal partnership did at the town hall in January, many members of the public were not aware of or educated about the bonds. Normandy Schools Collaborative leadership neglected to come to the community to discuss their plan and get buy-in from the very residents they are asking to foot this bill. While we believe that the Normandy High School and other buildings do need improvements, we question this funding mechanism and the leadership at the Normandy Schools Collaborative, because there are many other better options. For example, an additional $190 million in COVID relief is coming to St. Louis County from the $1.9 trillion, the federal stimulus package. Some of this aid will go towards education. We always have supported every bond issue normally set forth. But now there is a lack of trust, transparency, and partnership between the Normandy Schools Collaborative and the community at large. For the first time ever, we will not support a bond issue by the Normandy Schools Collaborative. We're putting our children first, and we'll let you know how this impact and have the hardship on our community. I would introduce Mayor Jackson from Beverly Hills. Mayor Jackson.
Good evening. Hope everybody can hear me. I want to thank everybody for taking their time out to be on this call. I want to start by saying first and foremost that I've lived in Beverly Hills for going on 32 years. I have assisted at that high school since 1997, assisting the coach and work with children, work with the librarian at the time to get a college tour together to go across the country to take kids on a college tour. We have always supported our schools and our school district. And it hurt us. It really did hurt me to have people who don't live here move here and go around and tell citizens in my community that I don't support our kids. And it hurt some of our citizens that those statements were made, because they know how I coached at that school and how I mentored kids throughout this community. And to have people going around just because they want to try to raise money for what they want to do in the school district that they didn't bring through us, and tell our citizens in our communities that we don't support our kids when we've been with our kids from day one, have not left, and continue to work hard in this school district. But we have to have willing partners. And then in an insensitive way, put bond issues on after they were asked not to do it. Number one, it's the hardship on our families in these communities. These are low income to middle income people, mainly low income people, single family homes during a pandemic when they've lost their jobs. Some of the children in our communities are barely getting food to eat. And you want to stack tax bills on their parents. A no tax bond does not mean that the tax isn't paid. For me, who understand a no tax bond, for everybody who's on here, let me make it real plain to you from somebody who come from the real sidewalk. It's just like when you got a payday loan and you couldn't pay it. So you came and paid $100 or $150 to extend that loan. You still owe the loan and you just paid some hard-earned money to do nothing to the balance of the loan. It still has to be paid. And our citizens already have trouble paying their taxes as it is. And to insensitively think that it's the school district's place to put a tax on citizens when the people come and ask, they vote elected leaders out for taxes being raised. They don't vote out school district individuals, they vote out elected leaders for taxes being raised. That's why we kept asking the school district, sit with us, talk with us. But every time they talked with us, they left the table, went and did what they wanted to do. So here we are. We have always supported anything that came from our first responders and our school district. But for this, we will say not without us. Anything that you do without us, you do to us. And so for our citizens, we stand for them. Yes, I was at Normandy. East Building has been in that shape for a long time. Money to fix up the building. Let me say this to everybody on the call. You have 2 cemeteries, 4 salvage yards, and a scrap yard surrounding that campus, and vacant properties and lots in the back. I don't care how much you fix the building up. With a food source and water source, you're going to attract rodents. So to bring up to citizens that there's roaches at the campus or mice at the campus, some of them have mice in their homes. Some of them have spiders and roaches in their homes. If they have a food source and a water source, they are attracted there. It doesn't matter what you do to the building. Now, as we start to look at
30 seconds, Mayor.
I know I have to get off, but when we look at why our buildings look the way they look and don't look like Hazelwood, it still comes back to tax base and how we fund education in America, which is a larger conversation. I'll stop there and thank you all for listening.
Thank you very much, Mayor Jackson, for your passionate words tonight. We definitely appreciate it because every perspective needs to be heard. Next, we'll have representation from the 24-1 Public Policy and Advocacy Council. Mr. Elwin Walls, will you please go ahead and take over?
Thank you. I'm Elwin Walls, and I'm the community advocate. I've been a member of the 24-1 PPAC for about 9 months. I currently live in Pine Line, but I have resided on and off in the 24-1 community for 50 years. I'm an alumni of UMSL and Normandy High, class of 73, and I bleed red and green. The 24-1 PPAC selected education as one of our top 4 policy priorities in 2021, and we have engaged in advocacy work over the last 6 months related to education in the Normandy Schools Collaborative District and on the state level. We convened an educational group to do a deep dive into educational policy, especially related to charter school laws in Missouri. The PPAC decided to host this town hall ahead of the election so that the community residents will be aware of education-related bonds that will be on the April 6th ballot. On January 27th, PPAC members participated in the second 24-1 education town hall. The results of our polls taken at that event showed that the majority of the residents responding were not aware of the bond issue and wanted more information. The second most common response on the poll was that the residents were opposed to the bond issue. The purpose of this town hall is to share perspectives on the Normandy's Schools Collaborative bond issues and to raise community awareness. As a representative of the 24-1 PPAC, I would like to highlight a few points about the bond issues that are important to discuss. First, we want to express that the PPAC fully supports the success of families and schools in the 24-1 community and has a history of supporting educational initiatives, including past bond issues to improve schools in the region. We also promote the importance of strong and trustworthy leadership in Normandy Schools Collaborative. Secondly, our community outreach and discussions have revealed that many residents in the Normandy School District have been severely impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, both financially and educationally. This is important to recognize when proposing an increased bond for residents, many of whom continue to face financial struggles in 2021. Community members should consider if now is the right time for a tax increase. Since there are two separate propositions on the ballot, residents have the option of voting for or against a tax increase proposition and a no tax increase proposition, with the simple majority needed to pass or fail either proposition. Thirdly, many 24-1 residents have raised concerns that there was not enough time for proper community engagement before these bond issues were placed on the April ballot. We as community members should hold the Normandy Schools Collaborative leadership accountable in raising awareness for such a major ballot proposition, about 50 million in bonds, of which residents would almost pay half through raised property taxes. It is also important to note that these bond issues can be placed on a later ballot, such as this August, after a proper awareness campaign takes place. Therefore, we issue 24-1 residents to make an informed choice about propositions V and T on April 6th. Community engagement and public support is a non-negotiable part of the legislative process, and the public and the PPAC is here to support the 24-1 community in accessing resources to make ourselves informed voters. Please see the link posted in the chat to visit our page about the NCS bond issue and to join the PPAC if you are interested in joining a coalition of community members to work on educational issues in our regions. Thank you.
All righty, Mr. Walls. Chris?
Yeah, so we're going to spend the rest of the time doing some more Q&A. Rachel, there was a few more things in the chat box. Are there any questions there that have yet to be answered in any of the conversations so far?
Yes, so there's one question here that I believe should be directed towards our NSC representatives. The question is, will Viking Hall be torn down in this process if the bonds are passed? And where would the new gyms be located in relation to current Viking Hall?
Viking Hall will not be torn down. These are just expanding the current gyms that we already have and rehabbing the gym that we currently have. There is no buildings going to be torn down. No gym is going to be torn down, from my understanding.
Thank you for that answer. That's great. And then there was one other question. I believe someone tried to answer it in the chat, but the question was, where is the new middle school for the 7th and 8th graders?
And I think someone answered that, but the 7th and 8th graders are within the elementary school. Normandy, a few years back, adopted the elemental model. So our schools go from, I think it is kindergarten till 8th grade. I'm sorry.
Rachel, there's another question about some yard signs.
I see. So the question in the chat here. There was also previously a question about the bond issue language. So the language that's actually on the ballot. Could one of our NSC representatives give us some insight as to how the ballot language was decided and placed?
And I'm going to let
Yeah,
Phil
and I
answer
think
that
this-
question. Go ahead, Phil.
Yeah, my connection's a little unstable. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to give a little clarification on what Regina was mentioning earlier. When you look on the ballot, both Prop V and Prop T have similar language. Both say that they're going to be helping the high school.
You're breaking up, Phil. All right, we'll see if he can reconnect. Hey, Phil, maybe if you turn your video off occasionally, that helps with the bandwidth.
Chris, while he's doing that, can I speak to the 7th and 8th graders?
Go ahead, Mayor McGee.
Dr. Pierce, you know, the 24-1 Municipal Partnership have a meeting every month, and we invite the superintendent. So Dr. Pierce came to the group and informed us why he wanted to combine 1 through 8. And that was because of the fights that was going on at the middle school. The kids would leave the elementary school and come to the middle school and try to establish their domain. But he stated that if they, in the 1st grade and through the 8th grade, there would be less fight because they didn't have to establish their domain. And that's why the community agreed with that, and the elected leaders agree with that, because he brought it to the elected leadership, he brought it to the community at our meetings every month. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor McGee. Phil Pusateri, I see you back on the line. Is your connection a little bit better?
Yeah, just to clarify, Prop V and Prop T have similar ballot language. Everything that Regina described in Prop V, that's really the district's first priority. And that is the safety and the interior improvements at the high school. The secondary pieces are the work at Viking Hall and at the track and in the other spaces. So basically, I wanted to kind of reframe that and clarify that as the priority. The Prop V items we believe are the highest priority. We also would just want to share that we believe that it's our job to do what we think is best for students. And while we wish the mayors were with us, we do want the voters to, and we feel like we needed to just go ahead and put this before the voters anyway, rather than wait for everybody.
Other questions that have not been answered yet, or folks haven't posed yet?
There's one other question, and maybe Ms. Marsh or Phil, you could speak to this. Could you give us a little bit of insight as to how the campaign was developed to raise awareness for the bond issues from NSC, and who participated in that campaign? The question was specifically about the yard signs.
So the campaign, we brought in 2 companies to help us with the campaign. Prior to starting the campaign, we did a survey in the community. There was calls that went out to community members. And after we did the review and did the survey with the community, we brought that back to the board of directors, who were encouraged, and the board voted to move forward with this campaign. After that, we began working on the campaign. As Normandy, we are only encouraging people to vote. And so we worked on the Get Out and Vote campaign. That's what the yard signs were out in the community to encourage people to get out and vote. And so as Normandy, that's what we've been pushing people to get out and vote. The Vote Yes campaign is being done on another level. As an employee of Normandy, I cannot encourage people to vote yes. I can encourage people to vote. And so that's what the campaign is at right now.
Other questions? We have a few more minutes before it closes.
Can I speak on previous bond issues?
Raised.
Thank you, Charlene. Just one moment, Mayor McGee. Latricia Clark, would you like to unmute and ask a question of our panelists?
Yes, thank you. I am an educator in Normandy School District, and I'm also a community leader. And I not only have questions, I just have like a whole range of concerns with the lack of transparency that has taken place like since day one, not only with what's going on or being pushed to the community, but what's going on internally. We have staff members that are not apprised of positions that are posted. We have curriculum that's being touted that was just started in November. I'm just trying to figure out where is the successes that are being promoted. And when we say next for what? Next, what are we preparing our kids for? How do we have the audacity to ask the people of this community to pass a bond issue when we're not even doing the essential things that we need to do? I don't understand. I don't understand that. And to be on here talking about these propositions when basic things for our kids are not being met, it breaks my heart. It totally breaks my heart. And so what I'm saying here right now, it's not nothing that I haven't said to Mr. Robinson and anyone else that would have an ear. For us to have a superintendent that we're just finding out that only has a substitute teacher certification, why was that acceptable? We do things in urban schools that we wouldn't dare do in Ladue or nowhere else. We rape and pillage our kids and push things and pander in our unit, in our communities that we wouldn't dare do anywhere else, but we think it's acceptable. You couldn't go in the courtroom with dirty hands and ask a judge to clean up something and then just say, wait, or the superintendent's gonna have his certification in May or November. Or our principal who didn't have their certification until December. Then we have all of these assistant superintendents. Hold on one second. All these assistant superintendent positions that are just being dilly out to people. It's not right. None of it is right. None of it. And it's not being transparently exposed to the community or to the people that work in the district. And it's just not right.
Thank you, Ms. Clark.
Thank you, Ms. Clark.
Rachel, there was
correct. She is correct.
Rachel, there was another question in the chat box about calls and how people were selected for the calls.
Yes, thank you. The question is about how many calls were made and how were people selected to get those calls? Was there a representative sample in making the calls for the campaign?
Yes, there was a representative sample, and the calls, I want to say, I forgot how many calls they made. It was thousands of calls that they did make into the community and within the Normandy and the 24-1 boundaries. So the calls were made. They were selected through that they had to live within the boundaries. We gave them the boundaries of the 24-1, and we utilized that to reach out to all of our community.
Thank you so much, Marsh.
You're welcome.
Chris, can I speak on something too?
Go ahead, Mayor McGee.
You know, prior issues when we had a bond issued, they brought it to the elected leaders at the meetings and we took it to the community. And the community would form a committee and go out and advocate for the bond issue. This time they left the community out, the leaders out, and they hired a firm paying them $60,000 when we could have saved that money to fix up bathrooms. But that's what happened when you disrespect leaders, disrespect your community, and then come in and think you know what's best for us when we paying the taxes. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
We have roughly 5 minutes left. So if there are any questions from anyone on the call specifically related to Props V and T, please go ahead and raise your hand or post the question in the chat.
Rachel, there's a question from a Monica Jefferson in the chat box.
I believe the question is, did any of the residents on the call this evening receive the call from Normandy High? So maybe folks could just sound off in the chat. Just post in the chat if you did receive that call. That would be helpful. Or you could also put a thumbs up. And Reverend Dr. Shields, I see your hand is raised. Do you have a question? Go ahead and unmute.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you and good evening to everyone. I'm always curious at the end of conversations like this, what are the next steps? I'm hearing from the NSC representatives, and I'm also hearing from elected leaders and others to say that these problems have been existent for a while already, according to Mayor Jackson. So I want to know, what are your steps beyond this, especially if the bond issues don't pass? What are you going to do to address these issues in a progressive way, since they already existed and will still remain? Thank you. That's my question.
Well, I mean, I think if we recognize that we have $50 million worth of work to do, we're going to spend everything we can from the federal funds to fix the ventilation and the interior air quality improvements. We're going to have to take a much longer view. We'll have to set aside capital expenses in a different way and look at maybe a 15-year plan to make even some of the improvements that we have in mind. It's also possible we could bring it back before voters again at a later date. So that's another possibility.
Yeah, could I get it?
Well, one second, Mayor Jackson. There's a question that says, can the props be withdrawn from the April 6th election?
No.
No.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Jackson, go right ahead.
Yeah, what I was going to say, one thing I want everybody on this call to understand, I want to say very quickly, that our citizens in the 24-1 are the highest taxed residents in St. Louis County, low-income people. And it's a piling on here. If you look at all of these, all of what's going on, they sewer bills are about to go up. The fire district is on there for a bond. The school district has put on 2 bonds on the top of some of the highest taxed people in St. Louis County. Understand, I just told you, some of these people, their kids, they're struggling to keep a roof over their head, to pay their utility bills, and to put food on the table. We got churches out here giving out lunches to children on the parking lots right here in Beverly Hills, giving out food down in Pine Lawn and in other areas. And you mean that it's not your place? I keep hearing you say that we made a decision to go ahead with these bonds. It's not your decision alone to tax our citizens. You should have come to us, and when we told you to hold off, we're speaking from a place that we know what our citizens are dealing with already. And that's where we were coming from. And it's sad that you didn't hear us. And now we have residents that are really upset with us that it wasn't more pushback. There's so much that we can say that there's not time to say. But I will say this, our citizens, everybody doesn't have a child at Normandy. Everybody doesn't have children that are at all. And you're taxing all of them. And so it's very important that if this bond doesn't pass, that you find a way to listen to us. If this bond does pass, you need to find a way to listen to us. I'm not talking about have a meeting and hear us. You need to find a way to listen to us, and let's work together as we always have and helped our children. It'll save you money, save you time, it'll save you anguish. Thank you.
Charlene, why don't you bring us to a close here? We're just about at the top of the hour.
All right, thank you very much, Chris. Again, I want to thank everybody for taking the time out to join us this evening. Thank you for all of the information, the comments, the passion, and the interest in what goes on in the 24-1, because we're all in this together. So in closing, please complete the brief survey posted in the chat. If you're interested in future 24/1 town hall, submit your ideas now and we'll listen. So thank you again. Have a great night. And don't forget to visit our241.com and look at our Facebook page, Living in the 24/1 as well, and stay informed. Have a good evening.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
If all the presenters or folks that have availability to stay on, come on, I'm coming out.
And Raina, could you remember to stop the recording as well?
I'm sorry, to do what?
Oh, could you stop the recording, please?
Oh, right.
I did it.